MTV's gonna fire me after this.
Kail has finally let pictures of her secret baby leak. After almost a year of questioning and looking for clues, while she dropped hint after hint, but finally the baby was seen. Allegedly, here's what we know. Kail's boyfriend and the assumed father of the baby, Elijah, was seen holding a baby with the entire family at a hibachi restaurant, and the baby's head was turned, which seemed pretty purposeful. Obviously, this could have been anyone's baby, but the fact that Elijah was holding him while the rest of the family were in the shot makes it seem like the baby was Elijah's. And then another picture leaked that seemed to be even further evidence. Once again, the baby had his head turned away from the camera, but it's obvious that it's the same baby as the hibachi picture. And once again, Elijah is holding him, but this time it appears to be a family picture. It seems like Elijah is posing with his family, which once again seems like he's holding his own baby for the family picture. It all lines up with all the clues that we've been getting for the last year, and it definitely makes you wonder if those pictures of Kail are once again proving that she's hiding a secret pregnancy.
Kailyn Lowry has stayed pretty quiet about the speculations that she had a secret baby in November, but because of the overwhelming amount of evidence, it's starting to look more and more like she truly did welcome her 5th child into the world, which raises the burning question that I think a lot of us have been wondering about. Why does Kail keep having babies? She recently hinted at the possible answer to this on her podcast. You guys are going to want to pay super close attention to this. If Kail actually did have another baby, that would mean that she now has the most biological kids out of anyone in the Teen Mom franchise. And if the rumors are true that the baby's father is Kail's current boyfriend, Elijah Scott, that brings her up to 4 different baby daddies. But I have a strong feeling that one of the reasons why Kail has had so many kids has to do with something seriously unbelievable. Allegedly, the secret 5th baby is another boy. Obviously, she hasn't confirmed it, but if it's true, that means Kail now has 5 sons. And I really think that one of the reasons why she keeps having kids is because she's hopeful that she'll finally have a baby girl. Kail has admitted several times in the past that she wanted to have a daughter, and she even hinted at it again recently. What she just revealed on one of her newest podcast episodes is absolutely insane. During a recent episode of Barely Famous, Kail was talking to her co-hosts about baby names. I'm sure a lot of Teen Mom followers remember just how bizarre Kail's baby naming process is, and that she tends to gravitate toward unique names. She refuses to use a name if it's even remotely trending in popularity. So when she made an interesting announcement about a certain name to her listeners, I was completely shocked. Kail warned her podcast audience not to take the top name on her list, which is Wilhelmina. She claimed that she's going to use it one day as long as it doesn't start trending before she has a daughter. I guess that was Kail's way of telling the world that she's still not done having babies, because she seems incredibly set on having a daughter someday. This was an unpleasant surprise to many of her followers though, and you're never going to guess why. A lot of social media users, including people on the Teen Mom subreddit, think that it's irresponsible of Kail to keep having more kids. And if she wants more babies just to hopefully have a girl someday, that's not the greatest reason. If she actually wanted to raise them and could provide them with a healthy, balanced childhood and upbringing, that would be different. But that's far from the reality of the situation, which is honestly a little ridiculous. There are some people who believe that because Kail has enough money to provide for her kids, her critics shouldn't worry about how many she has. However, a lot of people argue that money isn't everything. There could be negative effects of having multiple children in a situation like Kail's, and for a surprising amount of reasons. I think most people wonder how Kail can possibly handle her 3 podcasts along with raising so many children, especially if the rumors are true and she does have 5 boys now. Isaac is 13, Lincoln is 9, Lux is 5, Creed is 2, and she might have a newborn on top of that. She might have the money, but can Kail actually spend regular quality bonding time with each of her kids? She already has some crazy obstacles in her way. Kail has to co-parent with at least 3 different baby daddies, not including a potential 4th with the new baby. With Isaac and Lincoln, it's gotten to a point where they go to their respective dads' houses pretty regularly. But just because Kail's oldest kids have split time with their parents doesn't mean that her youngest children have the same. Lux and Creed's father, Chris Lopez, has had an extremely difficult time co-parenting. For a while, Chris wasn't even really that involved with his sons at all, but Kail was fully aware of how absent he was when she decided to have a second son with him, which is wild to me. I also had no idea there were so many long-term effects of being raised in a similar household, and they're unbelievably intense. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, children raised without a consistent father figure have a higher likelihood of struggling with substance dependency later in life. But that's not all. I can't believe how much else is impacted. Having an absent father also supposedly contributes to a higher chance of living in poverty as an adult, as well as a higher involvement in criminal activities. Not to mention, kids without an active father have a higher risk of developing depression, low self-esteem, and aggression. I know that not every parent is in control of situations that impact their child's upbringing, but Kail is knowingly having more babies. babies, and sometimes she's totally aware that her kids might not have an active father. I mean, the issues that she's had with her baby daddies over the years have been seriously mind-boggling. Even the seemingly steady co-parenting relationships that Kail now has with her baby daddies have been rocky at best. She has fought all of them over child support, custody, and more. And at one point in time, Kail has had a restraining order against each of them. Joe Rivera, Javi Marroquin, and Chris Lopez have all been accused of harming Kail in the past, and what we've seen her do over the years isn't any better. On one episode of Teen Mom 2, we saw Kail very forcefully shove Javi after yelling at him to let the dogs outside. She also went on a weird, sort of racist rant about Joe giving their biracial son a haircut she didn't like. I'm glad that Kail seems to be able to communicate with her baby daddies a little better now, but that doesn't completely change everything. Her critics have brought up another argument about why it's kind of crazy that she keeps having more babies, and it's impossible to ignore. Kail isn't secretive about depending on her nanny, Natalie, to help take care of the boys. And to tell you the truth, I don't think it's too surprising that she has a nanny for her many kids. It's a good thing she has some help, since not all of her baby daddies have pulled their weight in the past. But lately, she's been criticized for relying on someone else other than Natalie. What Kail had to say about all of this was honestly so unexpected. She recently addressed a comment that she saw on her TikTok about how her oldest son Isaac probably raises his brothers for her. Kail clearly wasn't impressed and fired back on her Baby Mama's No Drama podcast. She claimed that Isaac doesn't help with his brothers at all because he apparently doesn't like kids. I don't know about you, but I think it's a really strange way for Kail to deny the allegation. Instead of going on about how Isaac is grossed out by his younger brothers, why didn't Kail just say that it isn't Isaac's job? And I can't help but point out that for not wanting to help with his brothers at all, Isaac sure seems to be involved. Just recently, Kail shared a TikTok of him brushing Lux's hair. Interestingly enough, the caption stated that Lux will only let Isaac brush his hair, which kinda goes against Kail's argument. And it also raises another astonishing point. If Isaac truly doesn't want to help take care of his brothers, why should Lux's wants be more important? It only reinforces what her critics have been saying. If Isaac does feel forced to help, maybe Kail shouldn't have any more babies. After all, she unfortunately doesn't have her own biological family to fall back on for support. But in a weird way, maybe that's part of the reason why Kail is so adamant about growing her family even more. Kail only met her dad once, and we saw how awkward that was on Teen Mom 2. After that, she explained that he never reached out, so she didn't either. And as for her mom, Susie, we watched Kail basically cut off contact with her mom because of her substance issues and overall lack of desire to be involved. I actually really do feel for Kail, and I'm sure that she might have some kind of abandonment issues because of how she was treated by her family. But if she wants to have more kids to either break the cycle or feel genuinely loved and needed, I'm seriously stumped. Kail has at least 4, possibly 5 seemingly healthy boys. Why is she so set on having more babies and potentially risking their health and happiness just to have a daughter? I will admit, Kail has clearly done a better job parenting than her mom or dad ever did. But at the same time, I think a lot of people just want her to stop pushing the limits and be grateful for what she has. Or at the very least, work toward being emotionally secure with someone before having a baby with them. But what do you guys think? Are you surprised that she recently mentioned having a daughter in the future? Do you think Kail should stop trying to have more kids? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments below.